welcome to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts. I'm your host, Marty Elliott. Along with me today from Zamboni is Doug Peters, our regional manager of the United States. Today, we're going to be discussing Levelized and the NHL stadium facilities. Our guest today is Brandon Radeke. Brandon is the Director of Ice Operations for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Welcome, Brandon.
How are you, Marty?
I'm fantastic. Good to see you again, my friend. How's the family? How's Kara? How are the kids?
They're doing well, trying to get through all of this craziness and the crazy time, but it's been really good so far.
Well, it's great to have you on the show today. Greatly appreciated taking the time, and let's talk level ice. Let's talk both UPMC, the practice facility, the Mario Lemieux UPMC, my apologies, practice facility, and the PPG NHL facility. And reference to level ice, I want to say we installed that for you. Would it be fair to say 3 years ago, Brandon?
It's actually been since we opened this facility, so we're on our 4 years ago now. It'll be going on our 5th season.
Wow! So time flies when you're having fun.
Yep. So it's two cups. We had 2 cups on that, so it's been it'll be the 5th season.
Actually, you're right. That the first cup I do recall. I remember making a quote on social media about that. And did I ever get some fire back on that one? Anyway,
I'm sure.
Yeah. Can you remember the cup from the Leafs, Marty?
Oh,
the last one.
1967.
Are you old enough? Are you old enough for that?
I think this is one of the last years that the Leafs go off the cup this year.
They do.
The band comes off.
The band. Yep, you're right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Got to be getting close to a Canadian team getting off that cup too, right?
You know, folks, the listeners out there, this is a banter back and forth between my colleague Doug Peters and myself about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, he's south of the 49th parallel. You know, folks, where I live, I'm north of the 49th, and I bleed blue. But one day, and I know it's going to happen soon, that I can finally put duct tape on him so he doesn't have to bug me anymore. Anyways, that's another topic. Let's leave it for there. Brandon, let's share about your background in the industry and what your role today is with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Why don't you share with our audience?
Well, like you said in the introduction, I am the Director of Ice Operations for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's been kind of a storied, I guess, trip up to this point. I've been in a rink all my life. I played hockey since I was a small kid, and it actually starts out with in my hometown back in Minnesota, we built a community rink. My dad was the head of construction there. That was when I was a squirt, I think, or a mite in hockey, and he was the head of that. We got the rink going, and once we started going, I remember the day that the Zamboni came in. Dale Hansen dropped it off from R&R, and my dad and Dale hit it off pretty well, and I remember that coming in and like that's just crazy because we didn't have a normal Zamboni at our rink. We had an outdoor rink and we had the tractor Zamboni, so it was like the first. All I was used to was the tractor machine, and that's all I ever saw. And this thing came, and it was a used machine, but I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So I ended up working at the rink since I was a freshman in high school, and throughout high school hockey and doing that, learning how to drive. And when I went to go to college, the Super Rink in Blaine, Minnesota was being built. And so I helped open that building up while going to college, the original 4 sheets. And then after those 4 were done, I went full time there, actually worked at Columbia Arena for a little bit that the National Sports Center owned, which also was home of the Twin City Balkans back then. But then moved over to that was a computer thing. Sorry. Moved over to back to the Super Rink when we built the other 4 rinks. And I think you guys have a picture of that when we placed that order of 6 Zambonis out front of the building, and it was pretty cool to have that.
We do.
I remember going through that with Doug. That was a big purchase order to send that one through, and it was cool to see it all come together and make that work. During that whole time I was at the Super Rink, the NHL team started in Minnesota, the Minnesota Wild, and I started working for them just part-time, helping out on game days. So I worked for the Wild for 14 years until this point where I got an opportunity to end up out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We moved our whole family to Pittsburgh, and I've been here for the last 6 years. So it's been quite a run, but I guess that's kind of my background.
Well, you are definitely the epitome and the definition of being a rink rat. Yes?
Oh, for sure. And now I'm just starting it right over with my kids. So I work in the rink every day, go home, pick them up, and bring them back to the rink. So
I was just
I'm
going
here
to
all the
say,
time.
yeah, you're doing both sides. Have the kids been on the Zamboni? Have you given them an opportunity to drive the Zamboni?
Not yet. They're not old enough.
Not at all. Well, in
Not.
private, well, I will tell you, and I know our some of our listeners and my colleagues certainly know my experience with the Zamboni at the age of 7. I don't think I've ever told you that story. I'll tell you that story another time because I did drive a Zamboni at 7 years old, but because I was like you, I was a rink rat growing up. Well, listen, thanks for the feedback. You know, we had a podcast a couple weeks ago, and your former colleague, your work partner, Pete Carlson, was on the show talking about the 8-pad facility up in Minnesota, and that was a great podcast and giving some insights. Referencing what we're going to talk about today was Levelized and what they've seen from a public municipal facility and what that's done for their facility. I think it's pad 5 and 6 they're using the Levelized on. So let's talk about Levelized. How long have you been using the Levelized system down in Pittsburgh at both Mary Lou UPMC and PBG facility?
So when we opened up the UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex, which was 2015, that's when we ordered our 2 machines for this place and we put those on right away. And that same time, we added the Levelized to our game machines downtown at the game rink. So it's been 5 years, 5.5 years right in there.
What kind of feedback from the operators? I had the opportunity because I trained both the stadium facility and the practice facility on the Levelized system. Haven't been down there for, geez, I want to say a couple years now. But what kind of feedback from the operators have you received, both on the practice and on the stadium facility, regarding the Levelized system? What's their feedback on the system?
Well, I'll tell you this. At the beginning, the practice facility was easy. That was, the guys were young, energetic. They wanted to be, not that age matters, but they just wanted to do whatever it took to make the best ice possible. That wasn't too hard. Going down to the game rink, it was a little bit of an adjustment because we have some drivers, or our staff down there is a little bit more veteran and used to certain things. So that break-in period was a little bit different for them. But overall, now it's been great after the adjustments and learning the system and all that. But no, everybody's been doing a great job with it.
So let me ask you, what's been the biggest game changer for both facilities since you started using the Levelized system?
Well, I mean, I use it 2 different ways, basically, from the practice facility to the game rink. The practice facility is the day in and day out use, and our biggest game changer I've noticed is the maintenance time and what we do. Closing down, we're edging once a day, and we aren't edging corners down. We're not, doing that hard grinding on the machines. We're literally, we edge once a day, and our ice is perfectly flat whenever we need it. Downtown, we use it all the time except for game days on the actual game. We don't use it for that, but we've found out that it's what I use it more there is because we're using twin machines or double machines for all the game side. I'm still able to use the system where I know where they're at all the time, so they're cutting exactly the same and we're pulling off the same amount. That's where I use that more for that. And the other part is, we'll probably get into this a little bit later, is cutting logos in and out for things like that. That's a big game changer for me downtown. Well, and at the practice facility as well, because our marketing team seems to be pretty energetic about switching logos around.
And you know what? Definitely all 31 teams with their marketing divisions want to bring out different advertising. And let's walk down that road and talk about the benefits of Levelized. And being the trainer and training facility operators on how to utilize the system properly. Talk about the ease of Levelized when you have to pull out an inlay logo for changeover to a different corporate sponsor. Talk about the ease of that using Levelized compared to traditional manner that you would normally use in the past.
Well, this year I really found out the benefits of it because with this pandemic stuff going on, we pulled one of our practice sheets around, or pulled one of the practice sheets out, and then we're told a week later we had to put it back in. And long story short, so when we went to put the logos in, I know that we change out our ads, you know, at least once a year, certain ones, whatever. I actually built up over that and then came and cut our logos in. So I know where those depths are exactly. And now when I go to pull them out, I'll just set our machine to go to that depth and I'll pull them right out and go back in. I think that's going to be the biggest benefit of the logo side of it. And then downtown, or either side, when we're pulling or changing out logos, it's so easy to just hit your level. You know where you're close to it, and it's definitely so much easier to do that now instead of cranking up and down and grind it till you find it. And then when you find it, it's sometimes too late and your augers are full, and
Exactly.
depends on the operator.
Up the vertical.
Yep.
Yep. We know exactly what that's all about. So let's talk about the user group. I mean, the professional Pittsburgh Penguins NHL team. We got some high-profile players there. They're going from their practice facility that's just about 4 years old, the Mario UPMC facility, back to the stadium facility. Have they talked to you guys in the operations side about the consistency of the ice between the two facilities, both practice and NHL?
Yeah, I mean, we talk quite often, some key players in there. We talk during the season. I mean, I don't want to say every day, but it's quite often. I mean, and it is, I don't want to say that our sheets are the same, exactly the same, because it's two different animals that we deal with. I mean, obviously everyone knows that we're a giant building compared to a small condensed building, but as the surface goes for the sheet, we try and get our numbers as close as we can, temps wise, and you know, it's pretty consistent as close as we can, except for when you're getting 18,000 people in a building. That affects it obviously in a different way, but they seem to be very happy. I was brought here for that reason, to come and try and get some change and positivity to the not positive, I guess, change the ice, the mental part of it in the players' minds, that the ice is not as bad as they think. And you know, it wasn't a whole lot of changes. It was just more or less making sure that they knew we were on top of it. And I think a big part of this has been the level ice, showing them the technology that we're doing to help improve our sheets. They appreciate that, and things have gone very well with the NHL side of it.
Right. So let me ask you, Brandon, have you seen, and without putting actual numbers against this, but let me talk about return on investment. Have you noticed a difference post installation of level ice as far as both the UPMC and the stadium facility when it comes to cost savings?
Well, to be honest, Marty, it's tough for me because we put the ice in right away here, and we've had it at the practice facility. We've had it in since then, you know, so I don't know really what the savings would be there, but I do know downtown, I carry different levels or heights of ice throughout the season. Obviously, playoffs I carry a lot more because of overtimes and all that. But throughout the season, shoulder seasons, I try and keep it thinner, just to try and I'm trying to keep my numbers correct on the temp wise, and that I see it there where I can get the same temperature, or you know, where I need to be at different levels throughout the year, depending on how much heat load there's coming from the outside conditions. So just in that, I range from 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches throughout the season, depending on what it's going to be like outside. And I'm able to pretty much keep the same surface temp with that. And it's very easy to do, obviously, with the laser level. You just make an adjustment and you're right back down to where you got to go. So that's where I notice it. Money wise, I don't know total what we say, but with that said, obviously we're using less cooling to get our same numbers, so it's definitely there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. So for our listeners, let me kind of give you a visual for our listeners, and Brandon, you can definitely walk with me on this path. for our listeners, we're dealing with a typical municipal facility, if you will, at the Mary Lemieux. It's not typical, but Mary Lemieux UPMC practice facility, double rink. So we have lasers. It's two-dimensional machine control, and a lot of our listeners will understand this that have Levelized, where we have lasers mounted on walls. Whereas the downtown facility, the PPG facility, we have a pole mount. So Brandon had related earlier as far as how the operators are adapting pre-game, pre-warm up, and leading up to a game where they're using the two-dimensional laser facility. Brandon, I believe, because I was involved in this, where we actually adapted a mount for a laser to be installed on a step in behind the Penguins bench, where the operators, correct me if I'm wrong, they will actually utilize it up until pre-warm up and then take it down, take it back to the Zamboni room, and then go into automatic mode. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, so we take it out right before warm-ups, before our building opens, and then we go into manual mode for the game, if that makes sense, right? We go into manual mode,
Right.
and then right after the game we put it right back up, because we'll make a cut. I know how much we lost throughout that game, which is typically for us, we're about 1/8 of an inch we lose per game. I'm trying to fill the buckets on every ice cut, both machines, so we're cutting pretty hard. And then so we build back up with that, and just an offshoot of that, we build with a cart back up after every game, and there's where my wish list comes into getting my fast ice system. So
wow, that is the best lead in. That made this so easy. Let me bring
yeah.
in my co-host Doug Peters, our regional manager of the United States. Brandon, I know we've talked about it, and we do have. Let me kind of give our listeners with 31 NHL teams in that are presently in the league. We have NHL teams that have both level ice and fast ice. We have NHL teams that just have level ice, such as yourself, Brandon, and we have teams that just have fast ice. Brandon, you've spoken briefly about fast ice, and I'll bring Doug into this equation here because I believe one of your colleagues in the industry, and we'll talk more about the industry education, FOMA, but let's talk about what you've understood, what you understand from your colleagues in the industry, be Cody Bateman down in Dallas Stars, American Airlines Arena, or over in Nashville with Nigel Schnurr at Bridgestone Arena that have some fast ice or some level ice and fast ice. But Doug, let's bring you in and talk further about that.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, Brandon, it's something I know you have a desire to have it on the equipment. There was some talk about getting some new machines at PPG. Unfortunately, the wonderful world that we live in these days has kind of put the brakes on that. But do you have any experience in working with fast ice? I know we've got it out here at Staples. They've got it on their machine for the Kings. They've also got one system on their practice facility. But what's your experience either talking to people like Francois, Cody, or actually getting practical use with it on one of our machines?
I have not had the actual practical use of it, and I want to jump on one of those machines at some point. But with talking, like you said, to Cody and Francois, I talked to them not only just in general, but we're on the board together for the FOMA side of it. And I've talked in depth with Cody about it, and he seems super happy about it. And it's something that I think it's a game changer to have both of the laser level and the fast ice system, just for what we go through in an NHL facility. It just makes so much more sense.
Yeah, we're really starting to see, even in the community rinks, they're starting to see the value in the fast ice system. We sold a machine to the rink in Pasadena, California here, where they put both level ice and fast ice on it. We've got a prep school out east that put level ice, put fast ice on. And then we've got Harvard, just got a new machine within the last month or so that's got both fast ice and level ice on it. And the thing that I like about the level ice, and I was sweating bullets when The Kings put it on. This was pre-Francois getting down to the facility. But I was really worried about it because they had a couple drivers who very experienced, had a few years under their belts, and trying to get them to adapt to the new setup. And when I saw their ice, what it looked like the first night, it was amazing to me. It just blew me away with how shiny it was, and some of it had to do with new lighting, I think, but it really was amazing. And Marty, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more because you've spent a fair amount of time up in Calgary with the gentleman up there, and he's told me that it's been a game changer in his facility as well.
Yes, the Calgary Flames, Richard Gurney, head engineer of Ice Ops, in the same role as you, Brandon, and Matt Cowan, his lead hand. They both, that facility, their NHL facility, has both fast ice and level ice, and definitely even the players. I mean, Mr. Hockey up there, they definitely noticed an immediate return on the quality of ice, the bond in that, which and maintaining the levelness, which you've experienced over the last 4 years, but the fast ice, where they see that tightness of ice and dealing with TDS and the minerals and all that, and how the spray boom and all that. And I know you've spoken to Cody about it. That was definitely a game changer in the quality of the ice, which allows me to walk down this path. And let's talk about this, Brandon. I mean, we look at the professional sports leagues out there, pitches for soccer, courts for basketball, football fields and turf. Maybe not a good example, but MLB, playing fields. I mean, consistency, that the league has the same thing to play on all the time. I mean, where's your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely. I mean, players want it, of course, across the league, and I think that's where the hockey ops group comes in from the NHL side of it and tries to guide through, helping people out. But you're right, it's definitely a big factor in how they want consistent sheets of ice across the league. Now you run into some different variables with the way buildings are made and equipment that way, but it starts with your slab and or your sheet of ice, and for sure that would make it a lot more. Having both systems like that, I think it would help everybody out.
Yeah, consistency, a level playing field. That's what I refer to all the time. I mean, let's just talk about it. We got the Buffalo Sabres, level ice, fast ice. We got the Calgary Flames, level ice, fast ice. We got the Toronto Maple Leafs, Scotiabank Arena. They got fast ice. TD Gardens got level ice. Carolina Hurricanes got level ice. Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, they got fast ice. We got American Airlines Arena in Dallas, they got fast ice, level ice. We got Staples Arena, they got fast ice. I mean, so as a player, because I still play, and I know, Brandon, you play. I mean, when you're going from one facility in the community rink to another facility, depending on the conditions and what's going on and who's driving the machine,
Yep.
knowing the quality of the ice to be consistent all the time, compared to going from a 9 out of 10 to a, no disrespect to the industry or operators that are driving the Zamboni, to maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10, it affects the game of play. And that is a challenge at that level of the experience and the expectations that the industry has, being the user group, being the NHL players. So consistency across the board, definitely a game changer, no question. Doug, let's bring you back in. You wanted to ask a couple questions?
Yeah, in talking about the consistency, Brandon, I know that you're on the staff at Target Field,
yeah,
in maintaining a different type of surface. But how do you feel that with fast ice and level ice, and this was something that Cody brought up, he felt that is bringing in his best ice that he's ever produced. How do you feel that that's going to help you out in either of your facilities in putting out the quality of ice that not only what you want, but what's going to make the hockey players happy?
Well, whatever happens downtown has to happen at the practice facility. For me, that's, I mean, so it would be, you're not only, I'm going to put fast ice on machines downtown, but I have to put it up here to make it the same for both sheets, or for both areas or buildings for the players. But as far as consistency and making everything the same, It's, I think, instead of bringing out my cart, we build only with our cart, or build up with, our spray boom and all that. For the building side of it, you're obviously getting the tighter bond of it. But then, it's going to be exactly the same. And I can't emphasize enough how much our building is, how much the team wants it consistent or the same as downtown. And I just think from all the work we put in for, using the jet ice cart to putting all the, all those loads of water on, 5-6 carts every game to, that I don't get a chance to do those carts up at our practice facility. So this would make it about the same sheet of ice, I guess, was what I'm getting at. It's just the right direction. I think technology's brought it there, and I think it's the right direction we need to go to get the best sheet of ice we can.
Yeah, it certainly does give you, the operator, the ability to control how much water you want to put down and where you want to put down, if you need to put down more. And that's the thing I keep coming back to with the discussion with Cody. It was just something, he's had fast ice for a long time, and he's probably got more knowledge than some of our people do about it because of all the different iterations he's dealt with. But to hear him talk about the new version of it, and coupled with Levelized, what it's done for his ability to put a good sheet of ice out in a very difficult climate. And it's different. You get north and south of the Mason-Dixon line, and I would think even what you've had to accomplish in Pennsylvania is a lot different than what it was like growing up in Minnesota. And
10 times different. Yeah, that's for sure. Totally different animals there.
So much easier. Marty, I'm going to toss it back to you for a couple more questions that you've got for Brandon.
So we're going to walk down the road, Brandon. I'm going to take it a little bit more technical side, even though you don't have fast ice, but I'm going to go down the road, referring to the NHL facilities that have it, specifically the Calgary Flames, Buffalo Sabres, and how the metrics of both facilities, utilizing fast ice and level ice, are allowed to be able to determine. And let's go back to traditional, prior to technology being brought into the ice resurfacing industry. You have a hand crank, whether you have a 5-inch blade or a 4-inch blade, depending on how many 360s you're doing on your hand crank clockwise. Might or might not know as an operator what you're cutting, what you're putting in the snow tank. And the industry, I have to tell you, because I came into the industry 8 years ago, where I started from technology. I didn't start from as long as you guys have been in the industry. I'm older than you, but I'm making you sound old. But I came in with technology because I was account manager for Levelized with the manufacturer. But where I have identified, compared to what traditional is, how much is in the snow tank based on what you take off, which I've always had a challenge with. And help me if I'm out of line here, because ambient air and whether you have air conditioning, all those things that involve surface snow based on used snow, you base on, do you take that into the equation of what's in the snow tank? If you have 3/4 of a snow tank, is a quarter of that your surface snow and the rest you're cutting, or whatever the case may be? So before I get you to answer that question, I'm going to walk you down a path, and listeners, walk with me and help so you can understand where I'm going with Brandon on this. So you have level ice, and I'll do imperial. You can do increments of 0.01 of an inch. So mathematically, 1/16 of an inch is half the depth of a rut in the ice, a skate rut, which is 0.06 of an inch. So you set up your level ice at half an inch, or 1/16 of an inch. But the beauty of it is, now I have my floodwater valve that I open up traditional way. And how much am I putting down? Well, usually if your spray out of your flood pipe is 3/4 of an inch, you're roughly putting down 1/32. If it is roughly, I want to talk about an inch coming out of the flood pipe, then you're putting down about a 1/16 of an inch. But how do you control that? So let me take this out of the equation. Technology has now allowed the operators to go, I don't have to think about this. I am still operating and do my flood pattern. But if I set my level ice, Brandon, your guys pre-warm up now in manual mode at 0.06 of an inch, they're taking out half the rut, 4 elements of an ice resurfacer. We're cutting, we're conveying, we're cleaning, and then we're flooding with new ice. I set my level ice cutting at 0.06, and now with version 2 fast ice, I set my flooding or my ice making at 0.06. What I just took off is what I'm putting back down. Does it get any simpler than this?
You're absolutely right. There's the only thing in there is you got to get it to freeze in time. And if you can do that, you're always got a clock running on you. And I agree, it is perfect. It should be perfect. And in a lot of cases, you are going to get that to freeze because you're probably putting less water down than the traditional way. You're putting the exact amount you need down than the traditional way, where sometimes you're putting too much in the ends, they're not shutting it off in time, or you're putting it exactly where you need it.
Yeah, that's where you need your engineering department, refrigeration department, to identify what's going on down below, because they're wherever they are in the footprint of the building, to understand. And I know you guys, because the last time I was down at PPG with you, I mean, you were on the walkie-talkie a lot, and I think you were talking either to your drivers, your operators, or up to the refrigeration plant to go to your engineer. Hey, got to turn the plant down, or whatever the case may be. I mean, there's so much involved. There's so much involved. Let me take it down another path. I mean, Doug, I'm going to bring you in on this because you've been in the industry a lot longer than I have. Why don't you and Brandon talk about what the directors of ice operations in the NHL deal with, and for our audience to understand these operators, the head of operations, these drivers, operators, just don't run the facility. Where I'm leading to this, Doug, talk to Brandon about FOMA and let our audience understand what FOMA is all about.
Yeah, Brandon, if you could, I don't know how far back you go. I'm the dinosaur in the room, which has been pointed out to me on a regular basis by our staff. They're very kind about that. How long do you go back into FOMA? And you sit on the board currently, correct?
Yeah, I've been on the board. I think this is my 3rd year now. But I've been part of FOMA since even when I was back with the Minnesota Wild. So I think this is my 10th year with it. So kind of not the earliest part of it, but it's been around. I forgive me, I don't know the exact year it started up, but it was just a group of guys in the industry that wanted to get together and talk shop, what they deal with in an NHL facility that way, and it's growing from there. So yeah, it's a couple years.
Yeah, it goes back. I think Fred Corsi was one of the guys when he was still down in St. Louis that was involved in getting it going, and it's really been, I think, helpful. And you're closer on it, the inner workings of it than we are. But it brings the NHL teams together, and I think that's a good thing, so that they can have a best practices. And I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where you can say, hey, in Minnesota, they can run their building the same way that they run it in Pittsburgh, or the same way they run it in Tampa or Nashville or Dallas. But it can bring the group together so that they can discuss things and say, hey, this is going to work for us in our facility, or no, it's not. And I know it's had to have helped you guys in both your big building and in the practice building, in that these buildings now that are coming out that are the practice facilities, they've got all the bells and whistles. And I think they've learned from your facility, one, to what they've done in the other facilities that have built since then.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the path you're going to see down the road a lot in these buildings. It's I think we were one of the first new ones, and then it's been, Chicago. You see a lot of them. Just for example, Chicago, Minnesota, all those they're putting on all the bells and whistles. But back to FOMA a little bit. You're right. It is a great chance to. I mean, we always do it at the end of the season. A week after, it's usually a week after the Stanley Cup has been awarded, and it's a good way to talk shop and tell horror stories of the season, and small things like that. But it also, we come up with a lot of good ideas of what's next coming out, what what do we do in these situations? And it's a good chance for us to get back to the league on issues that we've seen too. So it's you know, it's a good group of guys to hang out with, and now we're broadening it up. I shouldn't say guys and gals that are part of the league side of it, and we've opened it up now to the minor league clubs, and we're trying to even build it more. So because these minor league clubs are also or the A teams or whatever you want to call them are, they're dealing with our players as well. So we're trying to bring this whole group into a bigger group of people so we can all be part of the discussion of how we can make it better and more consistent throughout the league.
I think it's been a great opportunity for the voices to be heard from the buildings at the league office level. And I know with Dan Craig being actively involved, and now Mike and Derek, it certainly has given feedback where I think it's sorely needed, because sometimes I think at top levels, people can say, oh, let's just make this happen. And while that's great and wonderful, and you've been involved in it on the level of the outdoor games, which are challenging, it's having to understand the aspect and the process of putting ice into a building and what's doable and what's not. And now buildings, I think, are it's harder and harder as they cram more events in, and it's going to be interesting to see what buildings look like once we come out of COVID and that teams are allowed to have fans come back into the building.
Yeah, for sure. I know our calendar right now, if it goes, it's an event every day, and I think every building is going to deal with that. So there's going to be a lot of that. But a prime example of the relationship we have with the league in FOMA has been, most people don't think of the things that you get into this job. You think, I worry about the ice and do all that, but there's so many other variables that come into a gameplay or at a game rink that you don't think about. But what we lean on the league to help us get our point across. And a prime example of that is we were having issues. They keep pushing time limits in between periods. Our intermission times, and a few years back they actually gave us a couple more minutes, 2 more minutes in our intermissions. And what that did is they didn't make the intermission longer. What they did is they took away from marketing the time they had to put the kids out there. But that was us as FOMA, as a group, leaning on the league to, hey, we need time if we want to get this ice as best as possible. We need the time. And what I was getting back to is, when you're at your normal practice facility and things like that, you don't think per se as much as how much of a what goes into an NHL game. But I think that was the biggest thing that you learn is it's all the other things around it that you have to deal with. And FOMA's helped with those little types of things where with glass changeouts and all this random stuff that you don't, in your everyday life at the practice facility or in your community rink, you don't worry about. But that's where our group gets together and tries to hash out what we can get through with the league and stuff, and try and make these games go as seamless as possible.
Yeah, what I think the listeners might not understand is what a production a game is. And it's truly a production, because you've got most, if not all games, are on TV now. And they have a time slot that game is supposed to fill, and they don't want it to go under, and they don't, more importantly, probably want to go over. And if you've got overtime, it's obviously out of your control. But there are a lot of things, and I've had the opportunity to sit in on some of these meetings, and it's great, the discussion that comes up and what effects that you guys have had to change to get things better for the league, for the players. And what a different world it is today than when my dad was chief engineer at the Met Center when I was a kid 100 years ago. So you guys are doing a great job, and keep up with that organization.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it going. Not keep it going. It is growing every year, and it's been a good group to get together, and I think it can only get better from here.
So I'll step in, Brandon and Doug. It was unfortunate because I was looking forward to seeing all you guys again this year down in Las Vegas, but of course, due to COVID-19, we have been postponed. And And I think we're up in Montreal. Is it Montreal next week, next year, Brandon?
No, we're scheduled to go back to Vegas again next year.
Oh, we're
We
going to
just
go back
moved
to Vegas.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, since coming into the industry 8 years ago, the camaraderie with the Facility Operators Management Association, which is the FOMA acronym, great bunch of guys, and the information that comes out of you guys that I take back to the community level, because a lot of the operators that I train are more so on the community level every day, and they know that I work with FOMA and the NHL operators and train a lot of them on the other options that we sell. They always ask me questions about what are they doing differently, what's going on in their world, and as you and Doug alluded to, it's a production. I mean, there's so much going on, and I'll specifically touch on PPG, and we'll get back to Levelized. But out of a 31-day month, how many changeovers, Brandon, would you do from ice to non-ice?
Oh, well, ice and non-ice, there'd be at least 20, 15 to 20
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. So for our listeners, just think about one evening shutting the rink down at 11 o'clock. Well, game's over at 9:30 typically on the eastern coast, and getting set up, boards out, glass out, platform down, stage up, and you got a concert the next day. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, and I think I talked about this in the podcast, or someone was, we were at a concert, I forget where it was, I think it was in Toronto, and I said, you know, you're standing on the ice, and the person looked down and went, no, I'm not. Why don't you explain that, Brandon?
Well, they are definitely standing on the ice. Everyone asks, I think the biggest misconception is you guys pull the ice out after for every show. Boy, I'm glad we don't do that, but yeah, we keep it in all the time, and we just carry a fiberboard, or not Homa soap, but I forgot the quick term of it, but it's
Sure.
a foam board that goes down that insulates it and protects it, and go about it. And it, changeovers are pretty quick now, but you're right, it's amazing what happens overnight. Not only going into concert, but coming out of concert and knowing that you got to play hockey in 4 hours, or things like that. When the last truck leaves at 7 a.m. and you got injured ice at 8 o'clock and you're scratching your head going, well, there's not even glass back up. It always finds a way to work out, but it's a mad rush in the buildings sometimes.
So it leads me back to level ice. How much of an influence has level ice made it on your changeover crew, your operators, getting ice back up and game ready compared to traditional hand crank? I talk about NCAA, I talk about any stadium rink throughout North America or anywhere in the world, how level ice has made a difference in that changeover process. Can you explain
Yeah,
to our...
there's a couple things there that have made a difference. One is where our floor sits on top of the ice. We know where I can have it set so it sits on there perfectly level. We're not overrunning our ice dam or anything like that, so we're not too high in the corners, or some buildings deal with that. So we know we're right on with that. And then coming out, it's just a quick dry shave usually. We set our machine and we go, and we're right back in the game mode.
Getting the beer, getting the pop, getting the popcorn out of the ice surface, and away you go, and you're back
Yeah,
in the play
yeah,
mode. Yeah. So
that's for sure.
yeah, let me ask you, reference to level ice, Brandon. Share with our audience the top 3 benefits that you've identified post installation of level ice that you can share with the group.
First one is obviously maintenance. It's just it's night and day. What we do, it's literally, I will say we do zero maintenance to our ice, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's we edge once a day like we typically would, and we're back to normal. Literally no cross cutting, no things like that. We're where we need to be all the time. So that would be one. Two is ease of use. We're in the community rink, we're throwing new guys into the machines all the time and learning the system, and it once it's set where we need to have it, it takes that guesswork out of these guys that cranking and finding your spot. It's so much easier. Now that's why I'm pushing for fast ice too, to take that element away of water control, and you can teach them to drive the lawnmower the same way. So I think, yeah, ease of use. And the third one, that's a good one. I just know those two are the biggest reasons. The third one probably is the ability to change logos out, like we talked about earlier.
Sure.
That's been a game changer too. I can't say enough how easy it is now with that and trying to find stuff. So
No question.
Those are my top three for sure. And yeah, it's been great with it.
Anything else you want to add to the conversation, Doug?
No, I think you've covered it all. Brandon's had a great career in going from as a Minnesota kid that grew up in a rink, and he's made a name for himself in the industry, and it's great to see that as a fellow former Minnesotan. And Minnesota is a great place to be from. Not quite so much a fan of it during the winter time and the oppressive humidity, although out here in Southern California the last few weeks it's been abnormally humid for us as well. When you can feel it, when I can feel it out here, it's something. But no, I want to thank Brandon for taking part in this, and I want to thank Marty for all your efforts with what you do with the Levelized system and everything else that we have to offer. It helps make my job easy because I can use you guys as points of reference when I'm talking to other customers.
It's always paying it forward, Mr. Peters. That's what we do. That's what we do, brother. We always do it. Brandon, thank you very kindly for your time, and want to thank everyone for listening into another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts podcast. By the way, folks, if you have a question for one of our experts or an idea you want to share for a future episode, please email your questions or requests to info@zamboni.com. And for more information on additional podcast episodes, please visit zamboni.com/podcast or search Ask the Zamboni Experts on your Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or Spotify. This is it. Marty Elliott, your host. Thank you to Doug Peters, my co-host. Thank you, Brandon, again, for taking the time and talking about Levelized and your facilities that you're managing. And folks, we wish you to have an ice day.